Michaela Chester with Shannon Scovel, our NCAA.com wrestling beat reporter. Shannon, you just made an Iowa wrestling all-time lineup. I can't imagine that was easy. So many guys on the bench that would be an all-star and on an all-time lineup at probably a lot of other schools. This couldn't have been easy, I imagine, but we're gonna break it down. I'll start you off with 125 and 133 weight class with Spencer Lee and Tom Brands. How'd you come to those decisions?
Yeah, you're absolutely right that it was a challenging task and left a lot of really accomplished wrestlers on the bench. It's exciting that Iowa's all-time list leads off with Spencer Lee at 125. He's been the spark plug for his current team right now. He's still competing. And he had some competition for the spot, though, on the all-time list, competing against three-time national champ Barry Davis, who won silver in the 1984 Olympics. So to pick Spencer over Barry Davis is a bold move because Spencer hasn't had that Olympic experience yet. But he has not taken a loss since 2019. He's on track to potentially be Iowa's first four-time national champ. So with that opportunity, it's hard not to pick Spencer Lee, particularly given the energy that he's brought to that program during his tenure. And then to have his coach follow him on this all-time list at 133, that's a really exciting thing for Iowa and just for the history of that program. Brands won 3 titles at 134 pounds in 1990, 1991, and 1992. He was also a 1996 Olympic gold medalist at 62 kilograms. So quite the legacy that he left with the Hawkeyes, and now for him to be able to lead the team, and pretty impressive achievement for him.
Absolutely. All right, let's move on to 141 and 149. How did you pick those?
Yeah, this was interesting because I used modern weight classes, and so a lot of Iowa's champs, their weight classes don't line up exactly with what our weight classes are today. So I went with Jeff McGinnis at 141. That's an interesting choice because he won his 2 titles at 126 and 142. So never actually won a title at 141 pounds just because of the time that he was wrestling. And there was quite a debate here, but since Iowa hasn't had a champ at 41 in the modern era, and McGinnis was, earned a title at a really similar weight at 142, I ended up going with him. And there's a way to do this lineup differently if you wanted to put McElravy at 141 and slot in Iowa all-time great again, Brent Metcalf at 149. He's a 2-time champ. You could have done that. I ended up going with Jeff and Lincoln in those spots, but again, very much up for debate. And I think that's what makes this exercise so much fun, is that it's super subjective, and up to the author. In this case, those were my 2 picks.
Absolutely. It's always subjective. There's always a pick that, maybe you would even agree with throwing in there, but you got to make the pick. All right, let's move on. We'll go 3 now. 157 with Jim Zaleski was your pick, 165 Joe Williams, and 174 Joe Scarpello.
Yeah, I'm starting with Zaleski at 57. He won 3 titles at 158. So again, a legacy that he left with the Iowa Hawkeyes, and he won those titles in 82, 83, and 84. He actually went on to coach Iowa to several national team championships. So continued to stay with the Hawkeyes before going to Oregon State, and now he's with the University of Jamestown. So put him at 57. I put Joe Williams at 65. He won titles at 158, 158, and 167. So again, you see those different weight classes come into play here, which makes this that much more difficult. And then at 174, it was a real battle. I ended up going with Joe Scarpello over Royce Alger, both of whom had 2 titles and could easily take over the spot and have a lot of success. Joe Scarpello was Iowa's first 3-time Big Ten champion, so he ended up getting that spot. He was also a 4-time All-American and, of course, a 2-time national champion, so ended his career with a 51-5 record and makes the Iowa all-time great list at 174 pounds.
All right, and lastly, we've got the Bannock brothers. You picked those. If you're coaching this team, that's who you've got in 184 and 285, and at 197, you've got Chris Campbell. How about those picks?
Yeah, so again, an opportunity to mix up the lineup a little bit. If it was, somebody else wanted to put these guys in a different order, there would be absolutely a good justification to do that. I went with Ed Bannock at 84, and I did that because when I was making this list, the first criteria I had, were NCAA.com, were interested in collegiate wrestling achievements, 3-time national titles. Bannock is a 3-time national champion at 177, 177, and 190. So I was looking for somebody to fill that 84 spot. He was the first 3-time champ that could take that role, and so I gave it to him. That left an opening at 197 for Chris Campbell, and Chris Campbell is a bronze medalist in 1992 in the Olympics at 90 kilograms, which is 198 pounds. So he could take over that 197 spot, and that was kind of my justification for doing so. Bannock, also an Olympic champion at 90 kilograms. So again, a choice, you could make it that weight. But I went with Campbell at 97. He actually won 2 titles at 177, so quite a bump for him to fill that spot. But again, sort of coach's choice of what you want to do with that. If you wanted to end with both Bannock brothers, there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. But your lineup is anchored with Lou Bannock. He's a 2-time national champ at the unlimited weight class in 81 and 83. He's the only Hawkeye heavyweight with 2 titles and was an Olympic champ in 1984. So quite the powerhouse to end your lineup with, someone that you would want to be able to close out these dual meets and compete for a team national championship if you were ever able to get, this incredible historic lineup, which of course you can't. And again, makes this exercise fun and really highlights the depth and the success of this program.
Yeah, could you imagine if this was your actual lineup? But I
Oh
want to
my
end
God.
you with this, Shannon. Obviously, like we mentioned in the beginning, you've been mentioning throughout, there's a lot of players that missed out that certainly deserve it. But who were they in your eyes that were the closest to making your all time lineup?
Yeah, when you think of all-time Hawkeyes, you've got so many names that could come to mind. One that was definitely really on the bubble here to potentially make this list was TJ Williams. He won two titles at 157 and 149 in 99 and 2001. And TJ Williams only took one loss as a Hawkeye. The reason he didn't make this list is simply because, again, of the depth of the middleweights at Iowa, and really because my first criteria was three-time champ. So while he had a stellar career at Iowa and certainly belongs in the conversation, building an all-time lineup is different than building an all-time great list. And so you're looking for those top guys at each weight. TJ Williams coming up just short. A couple other Iowa Hawkeyes that I want to mention. I mentioned Brett Metcalf a little bit earlier. Mark Perry and Royce Alger, obviously also excellent Hawkeyes. So lots of options here for the Iowa all-time great list.
Well, like you mentioned, it's a lot of fun doing this exercise. I appreciate you breaking it down, Shannon, your Iowa wrestling all time lineup. Thanks for joining me.